You've heard me sing the praises of the Panasonic Lumix G95 for the last year or so. For its price, you'd definitely be hard-pressed to find something that packs more value into its tiny little camera body. Thankfully, Panasonic got around to giving us an updated version, the Lumix G95, which should improve over some very key areas that the 85 was lacking in while still retaining a lot of what works well. But is it any good? Let's find out. What's up everyone, I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. And spoilers, this entire video is going to be shot on the G95. I tricked you. I guess that's not that big of a trick. But I've decided that if I'm gonna make videos about the cameras and talk about them in an online content creation capacity, seeing it in my hands, I mean, how much does it help you if you see the camera here? So instead of that, we're gonna see it actually make all of the videos from now on. That's the ticket. Before we get too far into the video, however, I would like to thank my friends over at B&H Photo for loaning me this G95 that you're currently seeing record for the past few weeks or so to make this series of videos. If you'd like to get your very own, there will be links in the description below. So let's get into it. As this is an iterative camera and not a totally new camera line, it's not that drastically improved, but there are some updates that we'll go over here really quickly before we start getting into the deeper comparisons. The G95 comes equipped with a new 20.3 megapixel micro four thirds sensor, the same sensor technology found in both the GH5 and Lumix G9. It can record in up to 4K 30 frames per second with an additional crop on that 2x MFT crop and no 4K 60 frames per second, but I mean that is a tough sell at this price point, while it does retain the ability to do that indefinitely. And one of the other new additions is the inclusion of the Vlog-L profile preloaded. It retains the amazing Panasonic Lumix in-body image stabilization, which can combine with Panasonic lenses to give you dual IS technology, which is probably the best in the market that I've gotten my hands on. Unfortunately though, we retain Panasonic's most frustrating technology, the depth from defocus contrast-based autofocus system, which we are currently not using. Those are some really nice little additions and might tip the scale in making you want to go with the 95 as opposed to the older 85. But you can find the 85 for like $500 these days, so is the double cost of this new camera body really worth it? To find out, let's compare the G95 against the 4 definitive features that cameras have to be a useful addition for the online content creator. First up, video quality. Like we mentioned, the G95 does have the updated sensor from the GH5 and the G9, which frankly is a welcome addition. My biggest complaint about the G85 is its 16 megapixel sensor, which was fine, but it's a relic in these days today where everything basically has a standard 24 megapixel sensor. As the GH5 is one of my favorite cameras of all time, I really like seeing its technology spread around as much as possible. Like, GH5 needs to be more everywhere. And yeah, the image quality, as you can see right now, coming out of the G95 is fantastic. If there is one thing Panasonic can and does do, they give you a lot of really great video features at really great price points. And they don't really hold back, and I love how this image looks. One of the things that they did decide to include with the G95, like we mentioned earlier, is Panasonic's consumer level log profile, Vlog-L. Now this is normally a paid upgrade if you want to get the same profile in the GH5, so it is nice to see them including this as an extra feature. So it's kind of like you get a bonus, you kind of get that extra money back into the camera. This should give you the ability to squeeze a little bit more dynamic range out of contrasty scenes, but in my opinion, it's less about getting the most dynamic range out and more about making the footage slightly easier to match to other cameras, because one of the negatives about the G95 is it's maxed out at 8-bit video both internally and externally. And I mean, that's kind of an odd choice, right? That's kind of an odd choice for Panasonic to make, right? There are other cameras out there that do have 10-bit external that are cheaper than the G95. It also retains my favorite Panasonic mode, and one that has, no kidding, been the most used feature for me recording product B-roll in a YouTube channel like this, and that's the 4K live crop. Now, if you don't know what 4K live crop is, this allows you to take a 1080p pan, tilt, or zoom out of a 4K image where you can just move it in camera. So it takes seconds to set up. It makes your workflow very efficient because you never actually have to move your camera. Now, I was actually pretty worried about whether this feature would be included or not, because the brand new Panasonic S1, that's their new full frame camera with their most cutting edge technology. that's missing the same feature. I mean, the S1 does not have 4K live crop, I mean, at least at launch. Hopefully here soon they will include it. But image quality is only half of the video battle, and the audio quality, as you can hear right now, works really well too. I'm glad to see that they didn't end up skimping on the preamps, though, and this is a thing with the G95 too, I do wish they gave you the ability to take your decibels down past -12 to at least -20, but that's something that's more of a gripe than an actual deal breaker. Again, you can hear the audio right now. It sounds perfectly usable. And you know what? Let's hop outside really quickly so you can see all of this in its glory as we do a quick vlogging test and we try out that new Vlog L profile. See you out there. Welcome to the vlogging test of the Panasonic G95. Now you might be saying to yourself, hey everyday dad, this kind of looks a lot like the vlogging test from the G85. And yeah, you're not gonna see that much of a difference. I mean, a lot of the big changes are gonna be under the hood, like we already talked when we talked about these specs. But the big thing, the really big thing that you're probably gonna notice, and we're doing this in a time that I don't normally vlog. This is like the middle of the day, so the sun is as harsh as it's absolutely gonna get. It's a bright sunny day, so this is terrible lighting. Huge contrast between shadow like right here, shadow back here, highlights. We're recording in Vlog. Now, I don't normally record in log format, but if you want to record and save as much of your dynamic range as possible, keep your shadows, keep your highlights, this is the best way to do it. And I actually think that this works pretty well. And when you use, like, I'm just using the included Final Cut Pro X LUT right now, so there's not like even that much grading going on. So I was kind of skeptical about this beforehand because I did think that this was going to be like pretty rough with 8-bit, but I think it's doing pretty well. Like you can see, like here's an example of what this looks like with just a standard picture profile. You can see like there is no, like the shadows are gone. Like you can't even see my face. You can't see anything, but here you can still see the trees back here. You can still see my face. You should still be able to see a lot of the sky. I'm actually pretty darn impressed with this, and that's going to be the biggest difference between the G95 and the G85 is going to be that log format if you're going to be considering it for vlogging. Okay, it is summer out here, it is hot, I'm starting to sweat. Back inside. Whoa, that would have been bad. And we're back. My only real complaint about the G95 when it comes to its image quality is we're now in 2019 with their newer sensors and their processors. I mean, why do we still have that additional crop in 4K? I always assumed it was due to the 16 megapixel sensor because the GH4 has the same crop, but I don't understand it now. With the sensor you have, can't you do full width of the sensor? Like, come on. I mean, other than that, the image quality is fantastic, but it does limit the usability of the camera when it still has like a crop on top of a crop. Next up in our comparisons is the one that I'm actually most excited to talk about because for me it's the biggest updates against the G85. That's ease of use. The reason I say this is the one that I'm most excited to talk about is the physical body of the G95 actually has gotten some pretty nice updates. It now feels more like a mini GH5 than it does a bigger Lumix G7. So I really like the updates like the rolling dial on the back, the more physical buttons, and the 3 function buttons. These are some absolutely great updates that make this feel more high-end, plus the body itself still feels great while retaining the old charm like side-loading single SD card slot, fully articulating touchscreen, and a mic in and headphone out. Another bullet dodge from the S1 is the G95 continues to use the GH5's app, which is no kidding, without a doubt, my favorite camera app of all time. It's about half the reason to get one of these cameras because you no longer have to be physically next to the camera to operate it. You can do it all from here, which is so useful. It does have the same exposure checking modes like the older cameras like histogram, zebras. It also has focus peaking. I mean, it just still has a lot of the same functionality, which is nice to see they didn't cut any. It also has that fully articulating touchscreen that just wins. If your camera has a fully articulating touchscreen on it, I'm just gonna call it a win. Boom, done, because it's so good. And it continues to let you see your framing, exposure, and audio levels. I love it. I love fully articulating touchscreens. I refuse to buy cameras anymore that don't have them. So to actually set up and use the camera, this is just as good, if not a little bit better than the G85. But what about after you hit record? That's when fiddliness comes into play, and fiddliness might be the most important aspect of a camera. I mean, as you saw in the vlogging test, there isn't that much difference. The stabilization is still fantastic. And you can still get that IS lock here, which will let you have like handheld tripod steady shots, which is a very, very useful feature to have. When I do the B-roll with the GH5 and I'm doing it handheld, I got that IS lock on because it's insane. We are still missing any kind of real usable continuous video autofocus, like we saw outside the I decided to cut the clip that I originally did with the vlogging test while being done with the continuous autofocus because it still has problems with subject acquisition and it decides to like warp all the time or focus on the background. I mean, the problem I continue to see for their low end all the way up to their highest end is just contrast-based autofocus is bad. Like, it's not good for video, and Panasonic, please give us some kind of phase detection autofocus. It might not be that visible to people not looking for it, but the way contrast-based autofocus works to slightly move in and out to confirm focus, just, come on, please. I'll give you all of the money. So you've decided to buy a Lumix G95. What does your ecosystem / upgrade path look like? Well, frankly, right now, it's one of the best ecosystems in the online video marketplace. Micro Four Thirds has a huge, mature array of lenses from the budget-friendly 25mm 1.7 all the way up to the 12 to 35 2.8 zoom, which is one of the standards of the system. It's what we're recording on right now. You have access to just about everything you could want. Plus there are battery grips, cage support, you can use monitors or external recorders through the micro HDMI connection, I wish it was mini, really great stuff. And let's say after you buy this camera, you do decide to upgrade from this specific line. The GH line is always out there for upgrading too, and the GH5 continues to be just about the best camera on the market. So all of the lenses you could take with you to the GH5, which, transitioning to the so what part of the video, that's the biggest problem with the G95. You can't buy the body by itself, so you have to buy it with the kit lens, making it a $1,200 kit. Now that sounds fantastic for 2015 times when there weren't very many options out there, but $1,200 today can get you some legitimate cameras like the A6400 or the Fuji X-T30 that I've been using the last couple of weeks. Both have fantastic autofocus. The Fuji X-T30 does 10-bit external. Plus for a couple of $100 more, you could buy the Lumix G9, which can do 4K 60, has better slow motion video, full HDMI support, and better stabilization. Or you can even get a GH5. The G85's biggest advantage today is its price. The value proposition for the G85 is its headlining feature. It's not necessarily any of the video recording capabilities, while the G95 undoes this. Is the G95 a camera with awesome image quality? Absolutely. But it does have a few problems that really just don't align with the rest of the market today. I mean, I could absolutely recommend this as a B cam to the GH5, GH5S, but if you're gonna look for a single camera to run your entire online presence, I'd probably recommend something else. Thanks for watching.